Well, S&P lauded by some, under fire by others for the first ever downgrade of the United States' pristine AAA credit rating. David Beers, global head of sovereign ratings at S&P, joining us now for more on this. Thanks for being here this morning. Appreciate it, David.
Thank you for having me.
Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, I'm sure you've heard by now, on Sunday used the term terrible judgment in this downgrade, referring to S&P's actions. He went on to talk about the math being off, in his mind, by $2 trillion. I know that you say, look, the math wasn't off, so I want you to explain that and then also respond to Geithner's comment.
Well, I actually want to respond to Secretary Geithner's comments first, if I may, because in addition to criticizing us, he made, I think, two relevant points here. First is he acknowledged and pointed to the damaging effect, particularly internationally, of the whole debate over the debt ceiling and the fact that the servicing the debt on time and in full, came right down to that issue came right up to the deadline that the Treasury had set on August 2nd. That was one of his first points, and then his second point was by his own characterization. He said that the U.S. public finances are on an unsustainable path, and of course these are the two very issues that we pointed to in the downgrade on Friday. So it seems that the Treasury is clearly unhappy with our decision to downgrade, but isn't disputing the underlying analysis that we're making, both on the path of public finances and also on the process as it's playing out right now in Washington, which makes it extraordinarily difficult to find common ground across the political divide on the political choices that are needed to stabilize the debt burden over the medium term.
Is it fair to say that politics and the lack of sort of functionality in Washington when it came to getting a debt ceiling agreement before the 11th hour is Standard & Poor's #1 reason for this downgrade?
Well, it's the two reasons I mentioned. It's this process, which makes getting a bipartisan consensus around fiscal policy extraordinarily difficult, and it's the underlying path of the deficit that I pointed to before.
Equal weighting on both politics and just the math, the fiscal path?
Yeah, and just to talk about the fiscal path for a minute, I mean, this year, based upon our measure of U.S. net public debt, this year it's going to be about $11 trillion, excuse me. We think by 2015 it'll be about 15 trillion, or 14 trillion, and we think by 2021 it'll be on the order of 20 trillion. These are very, very large numbers. Nobody disputes that on current policy settings, and even taking into account the agreement that was reached last week, if that's implemented in full, the path of U.S. Government indebtedness will still be rising.
Do you think that the downgrade, though, sir, could exacerbate the already weak economic situation, which you pointed out, that if it gets weaker, then it could lead to a further downgrade? You have Larry Summers this weekend on CNN State of the Union calling the downgrade outrageous and going on to say American households are going to suffer. So does this, in essence, exacerbate the already weak economy?
Well, we think that the reaction in the bond market has been fairly mild thus far. I'm talking about the Treasury bond market. That's entirely to be expected because we're talking about a very small change in the rating from AAA to AA+, from our top rating to our second top rating. So from past experience, it's not entirely clear how much of an interest rate impact that this will have. Mm-hmm. But I come back to some of the points I made before. The path of this recovery has been fairly weak from the recovery from the recession, and there are a lot of global economic headwinds out there as well. And so in the larger scheme of things, this downgrade is one of many factors that could influence the path of the economy in the future.
So you do not, is it fair to say you do not think that this downgrade in and of itself makes the economy fundamentally weaker?
No. And if it does, it's to a very small degree.